AI helps me massively in terms of really understanding what actually matters in my business. And I feel like sometimes we have the tendency to do all the things, but we don't do the things that are actually necessary. What those tools help me is to really understand what are actually my priorities and what are actually the things that move the needle, what is moving me actually forward, and to focus on less instead of having this tendency of I need to do all of it in one day and then the day is over. And obviously I didn't manage this because it's impossible to start into the day with this clarity of what actually matters today and what is also doable for me given the time that I have today. So this is like, I would say, the biggest benefit.
There is one question that I hear, or not even a question, but more like a statement that I hear a lot from people, which is, I'm not the terminal type, or people are kind of like already automatically opposed to the idea of being able to use Claude Code in this way. And today we have Maren, who is a coach and safe to say non-technical. You're not a developer. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be just running through how we use the system that we've built.
Yes. So I'm a life coach and coming from actually marketing, copywriting. And this is my background that I was working in before turning my business from a copywriting freelance business into a coaching business. And AI, I've been using. I remember that when I started with my first like official freelance client in oh my God, when was that? 2022, early 2022. I was not using any AI. And then step by step, AI became a bigger thing, right? And then at one point I started using ChatGPT, like starting to use those tools a bit more. And yeah, it must have been around like 2 years ago when I decided to go all in with my coaching business that I started to use AI like a lot. And now, yeah, at this time, it's like, oh my God, how did I even, work before all those tools were there? But there's one thing I noticed, and that is things being quite scattered across platforms. And yeah, you have documents in Notion, and then there's Canva, and then there's other tools. For me, I just lost a bit the overview of what am I actually doing where, and it just felt a bit inefficient, especially knowing how efficient AI is and can be if you know how to work with it. And it's not that you need to understand all the technicalities, right? But to have a system for yourself that works in the best way possible. And this is what I always wanted to have. And especially like something that came up throughout the last months was to have like a better system for all my stuff. And that's not only work, that's also life related things. So I analyze my dreams with AI for some time now. So when I told Maaria about it, she was like, well, that's perfect because it fits, first of all, it fits the 4 languages framework for the soul equivalent, but also something, yeah, we can incorporate inside the framework. And then I had all the business stuff, right? That's more mind related. And it was nice to see it as this like whole thing and not just, oh yeah, I'm just, organizing this one thing in my AI system, but it's like an environment where all those elements come together. And yeah, I'm super excited to be building this with Maaria. Being a solopreneur also means you do everything on your own. So everyone who's working for themselves knows what that feels like. And yeah, there's just so much we can, use AI for, and we can automate in a way that's intentional. And this is what I love about Maaria's approach so much, because it's using AI in an intentional way, which is especially important for life coaches because our work is very sensitive. It's client focused, right? So we want to have also clear boundaries between AI and us, but just outsourcing the things that don't afford all my attention, all my manual work is a massive game changer in terms of time and efficiency and just being able to do more things in a better way.
I think this is the most common conversation that I have, especially with coaches and like more or people who are in arts or culture or coaching or something that's very human, relational, like being present with people, is that we have this idea that it makes you somehow robotic and it takes you away from being human. And what we're going to be showing is obviously neither of us wants to replace ourselves with AI. Like that's not the goal for either of us, but it's like finding those places where AI can really help. And those might be things that you might not actually consider as things that you might want to do with AI. So for example, like dreams, or for me, like tarot readings. I absolutely love doing tarot readings with AI. It's almost like doing a tarot reading with someone else and not me. I mean, obviously I do the interpretation for myself as well, but when I'm using AI, I'm like, I get this like outside perspective also, which is, it's such a nice kind of like dynamic, even though obviously it's not a person per se. But yeah, so today we're going to show a bit more about how we're using AI. And as I said before, so Maren is at this like really interesting stage in her journey that we've been building together. I think it's been 3 sessions now, but she has no background with tech. She's not used Terminal before. It was something completely new. So like everything's still becoming, which is exactly how it is for everyone, to be honest. Unless you come from development, unless you're a developer, or you're very familiar with the terminal, which most of us aren't, to be honest. I feel like that is the one part that really like blocks people from getting use from AI. And the past 2 years, I've been working with more like the techie side of AI. And one thing that made me want to start working on this specifically, so working with Claude Code Systems for people who are not from that background, is because I felt like there was this advantage that was being utilized by a specific group of people. And then people like Maren, who was like a solopreneur doing really important work. And we weren't really able to like use these tools that bring so much leverage, and not even just leverage in terms of like business, but it has such a big power to actually improve our lives. Like it can actually take things from our plate. It can, probably my favorite reason for using Claude Code is it removes some of the complexity. It takes over the complexity of planning. And I think you noticed this, Maren, yesterday when we were going through something in the session, and you were like, oh my God, like it already knows, like it knows what I told it 2 weeks ago. And it just like planned your day. Like you don't need to tell it when you train it, right? Because your calendar is crazy. I really like kudos. My calendar has like 2 things on it. And both of those are probably self-inflicted. But your calendar is like a mess, like it's really complex. And I just remember yesterday when we jumped in and you were like, oh, wow, like it knew it. Because of course it did, because we trained it to know it. So it's like it can take away that overwhelm and that kind of like having to hold everything. I find that that's one of the most difficult parts in being a solopreneur, entrepreneur, and human, I guess, in this time and age, is being able to kind of like hold all that complexity. What I wanted to start with is to actually show the interaction I have with my system every morning and in the evening. Maren, you can share yours as well if you want, but we can do mine at least. I was trying to, it didn't bring up anything like super duper too personal, because mine is actually trained on quite a lot of really personal data, but yeah, I don't think it has any names or anything right now.
How do you get the pink background?
So fun thing, when you go to the terminal here, and you do new window. So mine is selecting with a solid colors. So it will just give you a random color, right? So you could just keep clicking until you get the one that you want. I felt like pink was very representative of today. Usually I have like a really dark navy. That helps a bit with the reading. But you can change the colors of the window as well. So you can keep changing it. One reason I like to use different colors is my memory works based on colors. I try not to work on too many things at once, but if I'm working on multiple things, then I'll probably have a different color for each project, just so I have like a clear context to align with what I'm doing. So I copy paste my Claude MD file path here, and then I just tell it what I want to do. Usually I say, let's start the day. Let's start the day. We already did the morning session. I haven't logged it yet, but I am in a session where I want to demo. So again, you can typo as much as you want. And this I say to Maren in every session we have, because I typo like no one. You can also use voice if you want. But yeah, I don't know why. I still like writing quite a bit. So basically the morning starts with you show where you're starting. So what's the context? What is the folder that you have? And then In this specific case, I told it what my tarot cards were this morning. Mine has been trained quite heavily. What it does is it has access to my Supabase, which is a database platform. It's literally a database. It's just a database. That's all it does, which logs all of my purchases or signups, etc., etc. I do this pulse check every evening and morning. I don't need to ask it to do it. I just said that these are my tarot cards, and then it does it on the background because I've trained it on what to do. I've obviously set up the Supabase. I'm not going to show it because it's personal data, but yeah, it will tell me new purchases, new event signups, and this is after the last check-in. So mine was like probably 10 hours ago. So not that long ago. And it gives me all of these different things. Now, that is something that happens on the back end. The only thing you might need to do sometimes is authenticate if you haven't done it already. We haven't set this up for Maren yet, but in case you want to start using this. Again, this is one of the things that I was mentioning on Tuesday, is that you can do this on your laptop. So you could just have a folder in your system that has the CRM. You don't need to connect to anywhere if you don't want to. The reason I have connected to Supabase is that I'll show how this looks like. And actually, we're going to use Maren's example that I built yesterday. So it allows you to both create a website, create an event page, have those actual signups from that page to be registered in Supabase. That Supabase then triggers an email sequence that sends the confirmation email that you probably got for these events as well. And then it connects to a Google script, which gives you the calendar invite. So all of these things are MCP. So these are connecting outside. So these are intentional connections that I have created for my system. I have connected it to Supabase to have that database. I have connected to Resend to send the emails. I have connected to Google Script to be able to do the calendar. I'm quite mindful. I don't connect to a lot of places. I think Sophie asked this in the previous session. If you can automate posting, for example, you can. You can automate a lot of things. But the way that we usually work, and this is what we're doing with Maren as well, is like we're intentionally selecting where do we connect to and how, and doing it in the right way. If you're looking at like YouTube tutorials and people talking about, they are kind of just like installing stuff from GitHub kind of randomly, I wouldn't recommend that because there's a lot of malicious intent out there. But when you do it really intentionally and you use established MCPs, you can get really massive support from those. But yeah. And then there's the today's context. So mine has that project. I started tracking and now I'm just tracking it. It also is trained on, I think, like 3 years of my cycle data. So it knows my cycle better than I do. But again, all of this data I own myself. So this is not being sold to anyone. I don't need to use those apps anymore. And I think we talked about this, Maren, yesterday. We're like, oh, how am I going to train you on my training plans? I trained mine, obviously creating the structure for it. I trained it with the approach I want and all the expertise, etc. But then I just gave it screenshots of my app because they refused to give me the data in any kind of reasonable format. And then it created an MD file based on that. And now it knows all of that. And now it knows the day, which is interesting. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it thinks it's February 26th, but it's Wednesday. But today it knows exactly what it is. It has my commitments. Again, this is not what Maren's calendar looks like. This is just mine. I'm very intentional about like not having a lot of stuff on my calendar. That's what I've been working towards. If I had Maren's calendar, I would be like all over this. And it tells me how my balance is across the 4. So yesterday was 100% mind. I am aware, but it was 0. I love that it keeps me honest. Like it's to help me see the things that I need to see, but I might not want to. So it will show me, but in a very nice way, I would say. It doesn't it's not mean to me. I haven't trained it that way, but I've trained it to be quite honest and make sure that I know what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. And then it has goals, etc., etc. Here we have the tarot reading for today. I'll show you something because this relates to some questions that we had, and then we want to go over to Maren. Someone asked about the training. I wanted to show you how it works in practice. So for example, this is just an add-on. So I have the four languages has its own tarot universe that I've spent quite a long time creating. So the suits of the cards correlate slightly differently from the traditional tarot to the languages, etc. And the way that this tarot reading here, for example, takes place is that it uses all of these files here. And I will show you an example. So what it has, and this is the amount of training that goes into getting this reading, right? So it has all of the different cards, how they are expressed in light and shadow, expressions of each one based on the four languages and how those are put to practice. And then it has all the different suits and all the different cards. And then there's like an overarching four languages system of like what each language means, how do you apply it, what goes under each one, etc. The reason I show this is because all of you most likely have your own frameworks and your own ways of thinking and your own IP that you're working with. And this is the way that you can bring it in a really kind of comprehensive way. So this is knowledge that has been obviously tailored and customized over a long time to be able to literally give an incredibly in-depth analysis based on all of that data that would be most likely very difficult for you to do as a person at once. So just like to get your mind going about like what are the frameworks or the IP or the things that you work with that you should potentially create these kinds of documents for. What are the documents that I should be pulling from and when? So for example, this one, the tarot reading, is a separate sub-agent. So it's trained to only do this. So when I'm doing the morning session, there's a one agent that goes and only does this. It only goes to the tarot reading. It only interprets the cards and gives me this. And that means that the context is less used and use less tokens. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because I know that quite a few of you were curious about the way that works. So then I go through the morning things. It asks me what I've done. It gives me some insight on what I'm focusing on, etc., etc. And then it logs everything, right? So here's the plan. Really curious about Maren, especially from your side. I know you haven't been doing the morning sessions that long yet, but does it look similar? Does it look different? What's your kind of take on your?
I will not go that much in depth like you because I actually did analyze my dream.
Yeah. Yeah,
today.
exactly. And that's actually a really nice thing to note here is that, again, everyone's system is going to be different. So her system doesn't include tarot. It's not the same for everyone. So the way that this works is when I build with people individually is that we build what you want. So I don't analyze my dreams, for example, but Maren does. So we build something for Maren to do that. But I don't have that. And so whatever it is for each one of the four, it's going to be different for you because we don't live the same lives. We don't have the same needs or questions. So just to note that anything and everything you see, it's going to be different in your case, most likely, because your life is different.
Yeah, which makes it really, really cool. So yeah, basically doing it the same way like you did. So you start with Claude, you copy paste the MD file, and then it asks me, hey, Maren, how are you feeling? What's your energy level? And then it does the four languages check. Are your thoughts clear, scattered? What emotions are present? How's baby bonding feeling, which is another activity we included in my AI system because I'm currently pregnant. So that's my heart activity. We have the physical body and we have the dream question. And it also asks me about pregnancy symptoms because we trained it to know which pregnancy week I'm in, which is super cool. So I don't need to tell it every time I'm in week this and that. So it knows, and it has the library and the tools for the baby bonding, which is really cool. And it also asks me what baby bonding practice would feel right today. And then I usually start with my dream because it's always the most present when I start my day. I'm not going to read that out now, but basically I just type in, hey, this is how I'm feeling, my energy levels, and this is what I was dreaming about. And then it does the full dream analysis, which is really, really nice. And it's been asking me to name my dream, and saves everything in the database, which is really cool, and like getting really into the symbols of everything that has been showing up in the dream. So we did that quite intensely. And then it saves the changes. So that looks like the same.
I think this is the scary part for many people when you start seeing the terminal do this stuff. But it's actually very simple. It's just like anything on green, it is saving, and
Yeah.
anything on red, it's deleting. It's very, very simple when you know how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then it says good news. So I think for today or this week, it didn't have that much data yet. So it was asking, here's what I know. So this is also what Maaria and me trained it to know. So as I said, it knows my pregnancy week. It knows the date also accurate today. I think it's because we spoke about it so much that it never knows the date, that it's now like, I'm going to show you, I can do it. Yeah, dream logged, baby bonding is logged. And then I told it I want to go to yoga tonight. So it saved that. And then yeah, it's basically asking me about the stuff that's usually on my calendar for Thursdays. And then is there any fixed commitments? So calls and meetings. So I basically told him my fixed commitments, and then we went into the planning. So this was quite nice because I was saying that I want to go into a coffee shop because today the weather is really nice. And then I was having like one idea what I want to do in that time slot. And then throughout the chat, I was like, oh, I actually also need to do this and this and this and this today. So we refined it, and yeah, it actually helped me get a really clear understanding about what needs to be done today. And yeah, what is important next to my fixed commitments. And it even gave me, I was working on like a few email drafts with it. So, which is super nice because I was doing that in the morning, and now in the afternoon when I have my outreach hour, I can just send out the emails and I already have them, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So it saves me like so much work to start from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can do both of them, both of these things, like you can intertwine them into the same tool. So I think Elena has a question. Feel free to unmute.
Yeah. Hey, folks. Thank you so much for presenting and chatting so fun. I wanted to ask, we talk a lot about with AI, like what is the time saving? What does it give you? What does it take away from you? I would love to ask you both, like, with examples you're giving, what are you sort of noticing that doing all of that is giving you back? How's it benefiting your life?
Good question.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so maybe I'll separate that a bit into the different things I'm doing with AI. So for the dream journal, for example, what I love the most about it is it makes me understand myself better because, sometimes you dream something, and I've always been someone who wrote down her dreams. I've been doing this for years and I've never analyzed them. And having like the ability or having like a tool that can actually explain to you the symbolism behind it, I just find it very, very interesting. And it's, yeah, helps me understand myself better, which is really cool. And then for the organizational mind work related stuff. So one thing I always struggled with is this thing of feeling I'm not doing enough. And AI helps me massively in terms of really understanding what actually matters in my business. And I feel like sometimes we have the tendency, to do all the things, but we don't do the things that are actually necessary. I think this is like a common problem. So what those tools help me is to really understand what are actually my priorities and what are actually the things that move the needle, like what is moving me actually forward, and to focus on less instead of having this tendency of I need to do all of it in one day. And then the day is over. And obviously I didn't manage this because it's impossible to start into the day with this clarity of what actually matters today and what is also doable for me given the time that I have today. So this is like, I would say the biggest benefit, yeah, related to that. And then obviously just having some support, like writing emails. And of course, I always still adapt it to a certain extent to make it sound more like me, but it's just a massive help to have a template to work with than starting from scratch entirely. That saves a lot of time.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. And could I ask, like, on the other side of the coin, do you feel like there is something that's been sort of taken away by outsourcing that? There's like a lot of the I've been pondering a lot about like critical thinking and writing and creativity and how I've noticed personally when I've used AI for some tasks that I'm like, oh wow, I've become lazy, if that's the right word, in my thinking on some things. And so I'm like, okay, actually I want to retain those uncomfortable, difficult tasks, even though they feel like, ugh. But then you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so I wonder if you've observed something similar.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to have both, right? To use it in a way that's helping you and, yeah, just saving your time, and to see it also like it's like an extension of yourself, right? It's never gonna be something that will think or talk or write like you, but it's something that can help you to do the work that you're good in. So it's like, okay, all of the creative stuff, this is what, is really important for me that I do this personally, client work, all of this, right? This is like the tasks and the elements of my life that afford my personal attention and that I also care about the most. And then for the rest, may it be more admin, may it be more logistics, this is where I take support. But yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to still, sit down and write without AI. It's still important to journal and to do all those things that you don't fall automatically into, okay, let me ask AI. So
Yeah.
it's like striking that balance and that's why the intention is so important, right? Like having that intention behind what am I using the system for? And it's not designed in a way to replace me. It's just an extension of myself to help me with the tasks that need less creative energy and less attention from my side.
And I do notice for myself a lot, like it helps me have time for those things that I choose to spend time in. So because you don't have all of that logistical weight on you in the same way. Like for example, I don't need to actually ever think like what do I actually need to do today, which is not it's not really a good way to use my energy. But it is a good use of my time to do that deep work, to actually do that creative work and to go outside, which is like one of the things, like the goals is that you don't spend all of your time with the AI, right? I think it's a really personal process. Like some people don't mind AI writing for them, for example. I use it sometimes. I use it to create content. This is a rule that I made for myself. It's like I don't use AI to write things that the other person would assume before AI were from me that I wrote personally. So I only write with AI more automated newsletter type interactions or, like a reminder message or something like that. Because that's something that you would have probably automated before AI as well. So whereas if I'm writing something more personal, if I'm writing on LinkedIn, that I usually do write myself. And I do record those with AI, for example, for tracking to see like
Hmm.
what resonates, what works. So again, it's not really replacing anything that I enjoy doing or I want to do. It rather makes it a bit more intentional. And for me personally, at least, I feel like it gives me a lot of peace of mind because I
Hmm.
know what I should be focusing on. And also, I feel like a sense of peace knowing that I will get everything done. It doesn't plan my days in a crazy way, for example. And of course, if something needs to change, it can change. But yeah, it's quite crazy. And maybe to respond to the more like how much time does it save, etc. I've really like struggled with this because it's almost insane to put the time to it because like a lot of the things that I've been doing with AI, I just couldn't have done by myself. For example, the tarot universe that I created, that would have probably taken like a year for someone to do with an assistant without AI. And for me, it took maybe a month. Of course, it's years of like solidifying the framework and like all the understanding so that you can train the AI to do it in an intentional way. But for me, at least, it's not a matter of like incremental changes, but it's just like it makes things possible that were not possible before in the first place. And maybe I'll put this on the background while we're doing this. So yesterday, and this again, by the way, and someone asked, but it doesn't take that long for you to like create those content pieces that you showed. Yes, but it took me months to create the systems that create them. So it's like AI is really fast when it's very well trained. So you put a lot of time in the beginning in training it and refining it, and then you get those insane results. But I think a lot of people kind of mix that quite often, that they think that it just automatically gives you those results. those results come with really like proper training. So let me just put this here. So yesterday, we had a call with Maren. I have the GitHub repo for the basic skills that I've trained over the past months to create websites, live pages, all of those things that you've seen and gone through. And we went through your branding and your brand guidelines, etc. I think that took maybe like 30 minutes on the call. And then for me, some time on the back end building it for you. But what we basically created is based on those skills that were templated, and we just like filled in the elements that you needed in there. So you put some pictures in a folder, you added the fonts, we added the color codes and a few screenshots. And then based on that, the sub agent was trained to create your specific versions of the website, the live event page. And actually, this I didn't show you. You'll see it now. This is a 3-step free guide. So it's like when you have a mastermind, people go in there, they just like submit their name or email, then they get access to the Notion page that you've prepared for them or the page itself. And then there's a CTA page after. It's creating all of those now. And also we created an email template at the same time. So all the emails are in your brand as well. But yeah, so what it's doing, I'm not touching it, as you can see. The only time I talked to it was here. I gave it your folder because I have access. We have pushed yours into GitHub as a private repo. So when I make changes or you make changes, we push it there and then we can adjust on either end. So now it knows what to do based on your branding. Again, creating a website, all of these pages, all of the systems for these pages, like the functionality of actually when you do toggle in the email, all of these things, it would usually take much more time. I mean, it would take like weeks probably to sort it out. Or you would have to pay for, Kajabi or Squarespace or whatever it is, which actually does get quite expensive over time, especially if you start adding things like courses, videos, sign-ins. Like you can design if you want people to sign in, you can decide if not, you can collect payments, like all of those things you can do in different platforms, but they all come with a separate cost, right? So if you want to have a course where you have like a sign-up wall for someone to join and see videos, that's at least like $40 a month, I would say. A website builder, those are quite expensive these days. Also, I think it's probably like $100 a year minimum. If you want to have any kind of booking systems, those are the same. There are so many different platforms, I think, that we just like kind of toggle on, like one on top of the other. Yeah, and also one thing that I noticed is a lot of places where you sell things. So if you're selling digital products, for example, they take a massive chunk of your profits when anyone buys something. So you end up losing between 20 and 40%, depending on the platform, with the Stripe fees plus their fees. So it's really quite a massive saving to be able to build everything yourself. And literally what we are now seeing being built is going to be a website, mastermind, and like free or paid resources with logins. So you are paying no one. These are really like solid web pages, the way that web pages have been built forever. You're not sending data to a third party or anything. Yeah, it's just like quite crazy to think about how all of these things, and I don't know how long you've been pondering and wanting to have a website, Maren. Maybe this relates to the time question as well. How long has it been on your mind?
2 years, actually.
Yeah, so 2 years.
Yeah, let's say, but also in the beginning, I realized, okay, maybe it's not the immediate priority, but then now it's been at least a year, like actively.
Yeah. And it's something that I know with every single person I work with, like I would have to build probably like at least 1 or 2 websites a year, just because something changes and then you have to go through the things and they have different terms, and then you're on a cheaper plan and then they triple the price and then you have to find another one. So there's like a lot of stuff that comes with when you're working with outside platforms where you just don't have control over. You don't have control over if they increase their pricing. You don't have control over if they limit all certain features. And quite often those are add-ons on top of add-ons. So you end up spending insane amounts of money just on the system that you have, like your digital presence, right? Whereas when you're using Claude Code as the foundation for everything, it's not only that you can build the pages with it, but because it knows your strategy, because it knows your, everything that you've told it, you can literally tell it to create a new product that would, for example, serve someone who can pay, let's say like $30. It will understand what you have. It will understand your strategy or all of that. And it can create that for you in the format of either obviously a strategic conversation, but it can also just create the actual flow and the actual pages for it in the same session. And that's, again, I don't even know how much time that saves. It's probably be like a week of work at least to get that done in all these different platforms. So now it's building it. Let's see what it has. Now it has the guide. So as you can see here now, it has 4 agents running in parallel. So they're all building a different thing. One of them is building the homepage. The other one is building the events grid. So you have multiple events on that page. And then it has the event template and the guide template. So we're just seeing what it's doing here, and then it will open them on the browser so we can check them. So yeah, the time savings and the money savings, I find that they come from being able to own everything yourself, and all of this being kind of behind the same payment wall or the same subscription that you have, instead of having to purchase all these different platforms. And all these different platforms also have different privacy terms. They use your data for training their own systems. There's like a difference between what you own and what you give away to those platforms as well, which in this case you can actually own yourself. We're going to have a session about privacy and security specifically, where we're going to talk about what is shared and when. So let's see what we have. So we have new English pages here. Please open them on my browser so I can see them. So now I created the English versions based on what we have. We don't have the Chrome extension. It's just going to open them on my local server. So here we go. So here we have this one doesn't work because it's not hosted. So this one needs to be put into a hosting platform. That's the only thing that you need to do. Yes. So I don't know how good this language is in terms of translation. Hopefully it's decent. I know with translations, AI it's not always the best. But yeah, this is based on just a Canva like dashboard that you sent to me yesterday. You can see obviously there's stuff missing. For example, we haven't put all the client pictures here yet, so it doesn't have them. Then we have the events. So this is the event page. So there are next events. And then there's the event page, which has the time. Again, all of this can be changed. So for example, if you wanted to delete this, just say delete this section or make this rounded or anything you want, you just tell it in plain language and it will literally edit it. So if you wanted to create like an event for alignment, you just tell it create an event for alignment and it will fill in everything. You just tell it will use the strategy documentation of what it knows about you and everything, and it will create that. And then you just tweak it. But yeah, these are all functional. When you toggle your email here, you will get the confirmation. All of these are there. And actually, when you got this in your repo, Maren, I know we haven't done this yet, but there's also like a step-by-step onboarding guide that's been designed to take you through the process of connecting to each one of the systems on the back end. And here is the mastermind. You can duplicate a Notion template. So here, the first page is you have the kind of like sign up page. Here, you could have the questions. This is the content of your mastermind. You can give this either before the session or after. This is now just a link to the Notion template. And the funny thing is that because I installed the Notion MCP, we could also create the Notion template here in the terminal, literally. So we could literally just be here and tell it to create a Notion template for this topic, and it would do it in Notion as well. So like slowly, the more you use it, the more you'll be able to do everything from this one funny little text window, which is quite insane, at least to me.
It's amazing. Yeah. So cool.
I don't even know what to say about the time saving, because it's like, this would take so long for me to do previously. Like creating all of this would probably be like a month of work, because obviously you need to do all the design, you need to shuffle everything, etc. The reason that it's this fast is because I've spent those months creating the templates, and then we can use those as the foundation. But yeah, if you were to just start from scratch in Claude Code yourself, it would probably take a bit longer, depending on how comfortable you are with the outputs, how well you know how to build them, etc. As well as obviously going through the steps of where do you connect? Is it safe to connect? How do you connect? Like all of these questions that when you have them ready, it saves you an insane amount of time. But I have to say that for my own work, like having created these and like gone through all of that research and done all those things, it's taken a long time. So for me, it's taken a long time. But now that we're creating this for you, it takes almost no time.
Yeah. That's exactly the thing with AI, right? Because it's working accordingly to what you feed it or what you give it to work with, right? So yeah, definitely.
About that through the cost angle as well. Like how much does it cost to use AI? I think it depends on how much you have to do the back end grind, if that makes sense. So like, for example, for Maren, she can easily do with the pro account for Claude Code. So I think it's $19 a month, because she doesn't have to spend her tokens on, like building these skills from scratch. She can just use them. So she only has like that tiny amount that she's going to be using them. Whereas me, because I'm creating them, it will obviously take more time. But when multiple people have access to them, then it's less than if everyone was building them from scratch for themselves. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. So much to think about. Thank you. This is
Yeah.
fascinating.
For sure.
You so cool to see the tower reading and everything. Like, there's so many things you use it for that is quite different to like the classic take bro.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because it's even like it's like the same flow, right? In the same flow, it does like the tarot stuff, it does the CRM, it does like all of these things that are like business, it does life, like it does all of these things at the same time. And it's that one run where it does it. And the goal of all of this and all of it is to spend more time outside of the AI. Like the goal is not to stay in that conversation forever. Which again is slightly different if you're using like SaaS platforms that have the embedded desire to keep people online as long as possible so they make more money.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like, how do we stay away more from technology rather than spend more time with it? Thank you so much.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like one thing I will share here at the end is that because this is a fully custom built system, it doesn't do those things, for example, because it hasn't been trained to do that, right? It's not trained on trying to keep me here. It's trained on getting me out of the AI. But the other thing that I wanted to really quickly touch on is the memory aspect. So the Claude Code system that I have has a fully custom built memory system that I own again. So it's on my system and I decide how it connects. I decide what it actually submits to AI. I decide what it submits to GitHub, but it lives on my computer, right? Of course, it uses it when I'm using Claude. So when I'm putting things on Claude, it will share that with Anthropic, depending on the package that you have. If you have Pro, it's going to be stored for 30 days, not used for training if you opt out. If you're using API credits, then it's 7 days. But it has these different layers. So it has a layer for that it calls like the scratch pad. So it records things that are kind of like, if you imagine like taking notes on a piece of paper. So that's the one thing. They are temporary. You clean them up every day or every week. And then you need to decide whether you save them or you archive them. So it keeps memorizing things, but it always, it will only remember and utilize the facts that you want it to use. Then there's the learnings, so session learnings. So this is something that in the evening check-in, it will show you like, these are the things that we noticed today. These are the things that we need to save so that things work better. And again, it will ask, which ones do you want to save and which ones do you want to archive? So again, you're in control of what gets learned and what gets saved. And then the third one is patterns. So if it notices a pattern that you have or a pattern that comes out, it will save it to the patterns. And then the last one is facts, that is split into different things. But this is essentially knowledge that it uses on a permanent basis. And this is something that you have access to. I can literally see what mine are. So I could just open this and I can just see what it considers as facts. So these are my identity pieces, preferences, whatever, sales targets, But again, to compare with any other platform that is using AI or that does use your data to train their own things, I own this data. And the only times it is shared is if I share it with the AI, and it is stored not for training, which is not the case with any SaaS platforms, really. They always use your data to train. So what you can see is you have full control over what it memorizes and what it knows about you, which also relates back to the question of accuracy. Why is it so much more accurate? It's so much more accurate because you're in control of what it remembers and how it uses it, right? But again, this is something that I've built for the systems myself. This is not like an out-of-the-box Claude Code thing. Amazing. Cool. So thank you so much for joining. And yeah, I'll see you in the next ones.